Welcome back, everyone. It's the Bourbon Judge. So today's episode, brand new idea and concept, and I have to give credit to my patrons. Actually, I had a couple people reach out and asked, hey Judge, what do you sip on a given night? Like if you're doing a whiskey flight, what do you put in it and why? So we're gonna dive into everything of my selection, if you will. But before we get started, quick shout out actually to my new patrons as well. So huge shout out to my new patrons, my good friend Mike Miller, Brian Kelly, Shannon Walker, John Wilkinson, Keith Cagle, hopefully I got that one right, Keith, Jeremy Mobley, Charlie Johnson, Terrell Cooper, TFR, aka my good friend Gene, and last but not least, Carrie Driver. So thank you all for supporting the Bourbon Judge and for becoming patrons, as well as honestly thank you to all my other patrons as well. I really do appreciate all the love and support. We honestly, truly, and I say this a lot, but we have a blast. It's like our own little family, if you will, our whiskey family. So between Discord, our contests, our happy hours, I try to do a lot more like meet and greets in person. So even, for example, this Sunday, I'll be down in DC and we have a patron meetup. So if you're in the Maryland, DC area, we're going to have fun for the patrons and so forth. And I also try to include all my patrons as well, at least not all, but try to include some of the patrons as well, I should say, on my barrel picks as well. So, and speaking of barrel picks, our Starlight honey is almost sold out. We are like at 99.9% sold out. There are literally a handful of bottles left, so that will be going soon. And then there's a whole bunch of other barrel picks that are coming in the next couple weeks between ASW, the Fiddler. We also have the Penelope Architect, Frey Ranch, and a few others. So a lot of fun, cool stuff in the Judge family, if you will. All right. So back to today's episode. So again, I had a couple patrons reach out and they're like, Judge, if you're not just pouring one thing on a given night, if you're pouring like a flight, what's your perfect flight and why? So I was like, all right, let's go ahead and do an episode for this one. So what you'll see is, and I'll bring in the bottles as I discuss each one and I have them poured in order, but for me, when I think of the perfect flight, it's not so much like my favorite, like the top bottles, I'm not drinking like, all Pappy or all Old Carter, of every single batch that they release or all Four Gate. It's not like that. It really isn't. It's, I kind of go by a couple of things. I try to bring them into like different categories and you'll see the reason why. So hopefully this all kind of makes sense. And this is what works for me, but you can honestly make your perfect flight for what works best for you. But for me, you'll see there's different categories, different types of whiskeys, different proof points, and you'll hopefully see the crazy madness behind the Judge and so forth. Cool? All right. So starting on my left, the first glass. So for me, the first glass of my flight, typically for me, is always probably like a lower proof point, anywhere from like 95 to like 100 proof. I want something to kind of start the night out and I want to just coast into it. You can't just come out with like barrel proof, right? For your first flight, or for your first pour, that might ruin things or get things a little crazy. So for me, the first pour is always going to be like in that 90, 95 to 100 proof category. Something that's like great whiskey and I can just kind of ease into the night. So for me, for my flight, at least for today, I'm picking Early Times Bottled and Bond. 100 proof, and absolutely an amazing bottle. Great quality whiskey coming from a great brand. And I know what I'm getting each and every time I'm starting out with like an Early Times Bottled and Bond starting at 100 proof. So great quality whiskey and one that aligns with my palate. And I know I'm going to have a great time with it each and every time I sip some Early Times. All right, let me go ahead and get a quick little sip of this bad boy. Woo! See, from a palate perspective, I know exactly what I'm getting each and every time I sip some Early Times. The rich, dark chocolate notes, the caramel, the brown sugar is exactly what I want to start the night, especially at 100 proof as well, right? Again. All right. Now we're going into the second glass of the night. So I'm kind of stepping it up at this point. So this was 100 proof. So now I want to step it up maybe from a proof standpoint, but then also I want to change it from a category. Like many of you out there, not everyone, but like many of you out there, I do love myself a wheated bourbon. And while there are tons of different options for wheated bourbons out there, such as like the entire Weller lineup from Buffalo Trace, Larceny from Heaven Hill. For me, when I think of a really good weeder, one that, I think is great quality, I can find it all over as well, I'm always going to grab as a second bottle in my flight a wheated bourbon, and more than likely, I'm probably going to grab a Maker's. In this case, I brought the, this is the Maker's Mark, the 2021 limited release. This is the FAE02. So I kind of went old school here, but this is a fantastic pour. When you think of Maker's, you think of consistency. They're always producing fantastic wheated bourbons. And especially with these limited releases, like the FAE02, I thought was just amazing. This even topped my, or cracked my top 10 of 2021 because it was such a fantastic pour. And this one, by the way, coming in at exactly 109.1 proof. So kind of stepped it up a little bit. All right, let me get a little, small little sip of Maker's here. Oh, man. See, you know exactly what you're getting each and every time. Gosh. Wow. Wow. Truly amazing quality. Every single time. I love a great Maker's pour. Love a good wheated bourbon. It's just such a different experience, right? When you sip a wheated bourbon. All right, before I get to the last two, I need 3 quick, easy favors. Number 1, hit the like button. Number 2, drop me a comment. Let me know what are your thoughts like for a great flight. Either something that you've had before in the past, or just when you're building out a whiskey flight, what goes into it, what type of whiskeys, and tell me the reason why. Give me the logic. Cool? And last but not least, please make sure you also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you get notification each and every time I release a new episode. All right, my friends. So now we are moving on to number 3. So the third option in my flight. I would be remiss if I did not add in the third category. Come on, you got to add in a rye. Tons of great options for ryes. You can do more of like the traditional 95-5 mash bill, meaning 95% rye, 5% malted barley. That's like your true rye, if you will. Or you can change it up a little bit, right? Do more of like a Sagamore, something that's a rye, but has a lot more corn in the mash bill. For me, I kind of go right a little bit in between both of those, if you will. And I'm also going to step up from a proof standpoint by going with something that's 112.2 proof. So I'm picking the Wild Turkey Rare Breed Rye. So the Wild Turkey Rare Breed Barrel Proof Rye. I mean, Wild Turkey is just, when you think of excellence in the whiskey community, there's no better brand out there than Wild Turkey. They're, top notch, honestly, right? Along with Makers and so forth. Top notch brand. This is one where I think it does live in a really good place of being your traditional rye, but then also kind of closer, if you will, because it's a little bit sweeter to like a Sagamore in a way. It's kind of in between those two, if you will. And for me, it works very well for my palate. So coming in at 112 proof, this is one that, I'm sipping a rye. I want something that, aligns again to my palate, just for me personally. Everyone's different, but this is an amazing barrel proof rye. All right. As we say in our courtroom, cheers, everybody. Whew, goodness. Oh, man. I'm having good flashbacks because we just did a barrel pick with Wild Turkey. Me, SLB drinks, and stuff in whiskey. I'm just thinking back to the being in the Rick House and going through all the different barrels. That was amazing. That was amazing. We didn't have a rye, but we did have just great time at Wild Turkey. So there's a little memory back there. Oh man. Woo! Now that is absolutely delicious. Wow. All right. So Judge, how are you ending your flight? What are you going to do? What's different, right? You've already been through a lower proof from an entry standpoint. I had a wheated bourbon and I had a rye, a barrel proof rye. So how am I going to end out my flight? For me, I'm actually ending out my flight with actually what I love. Again, this is all about, whenever you create a flight, it's all about your personal preference. And for me, I am a major, major fan of finished whiskeys, bourbons or ryes. In this case, you got a little bit of both actually. So I'm finishing my flight, my 4th class, with a finished whiskey. And this is none other than Foregate, the Kelvin Collaboration number 4. Took it a little old school, but this is Kelvin Collaboration number 4. So this is bourbon and rye whiskey finished in tawny port and Barbadian dark rum cask. To me, this one is like, it just hits home. From a proof standpoint, obviously up there was like 111.7. From a proof standpoint, I love the finishing on it as well. This is probably one of my favorite, let's call it Foregate products. And Foregate, for the most part, I think almost all but a few batches, for the most part, almost all of their products are finished whiskeys. They finish them in different, in this case, the port and the rum. But for me, this one hits home. And when I think of a perfect flight, voila. This is it, folks. Hey, as we say in this courtroom, peace, cheers, salute, much love and respect. Appreciate each and every one of you out there. Take care, everyone. See ya. Wow. Amazing. Peace.